Hi everyone. We're just going to spend a few moments waiting for Karina to join us. Let me know when you've jumped on, Karina, and we can get you all connected up. How is everyone? I can see a few familiar names popping up. Hello. So many of you online. Awesome. So we'll just wait for Karina. So there's, hi Matt. Hi Erin. So nice to see you all on here. Have we caught you at lunchtime? All right, I think I've got Karina here, so I am going to get on and join us. And while we're waiting for her to connect through, for those that are new here, I'm Emmy Samtani and I'm the founder of Kiindred. Hey, Karina.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you.
That's good. Looking happy and fresh for a midday session online.
Thank you, thank you. I won't tell you what time I got to bed last night, but
Oh,
good.
Is that work or children related?
Work, actually. My children are now getting to the age where they are, touch wood, starting to sleep through and doing well there. So yeah, unfortunately it was work related, but that's right. That's working life, right?
It sure is. We do it to ourselves. So there are so many people on here already. I thought, it always takes a little bit of time to get people online, but I'm really excited to see so many familiar names and some new as well. So as I was saying, I am the founder of a parenting app called Kiindred, and we support parents with little ones and work with a number of incredible experts and brand partners. So of course, Biostime Nutrition, we've worked with them for a number of years now, and I'm so glad that they've got Karina and I together to do this toddler nutrition series, because I know you're going to talk a lot to this, Karina, but it's like 1 in 3 people are dealing with this. So
yeah, absolutely.
So what we're going to do today, I have been asking over on the Kiindred handle, and I know the Biostime team have been as well, I've been asking questions to really find out what it is that you want us to cover off today. So what I've done, Karina, I've prepared all of those burning questions, and I'm actually just going to throw them at you because I know you're going to share such wonderful tips.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. Love helping other mums. We've got to help each other, right?
We sure do. We sure do. And I will, for those that are watching, I know that sometimes it can get busy with little ones. So we're really going to move through this efficiently. We're going to make sure we cover off those super key tips. But I know that, reading through them, there are so many things there that I can certainly relate to. And I know Karina's going to say, this is what I spend my day doing. So first of all, Karina, one of the big ones was about children or toddlers that are not interested in food. So how can I entice my toddler to eat?
Great question, and something that I guess asked daily and weekly. Look, I think we've got to start with looking at the structure in the house, because I know what it was like when I had a toddler, especially if they're a bit on the lean side. You want them to be a healthy weight, grow and thrive. And often we can fall into the trap of going, here, just eat this, here, just eat this, here, just eat this. But children really respond to structure. And as much as possible, we have to try and set up this structure so we sort of have set meal and snack times, and we allow them to get hungry in between. Because if we don't, then we're always just topping up their tummies with a little bit of food, and they never really understand that sort of hunger and fullness. I've had children certainly, go to the fridge and snack on, bits of milk and what things that they can grab basically all day long. And their parents are really frustrated that they don't eat a proper meal. And I say, well, you wouldn't be hungry either if you were snacking all day long. So I think we need to start with thinking about structure and enabling a 2-hour gap in between, main meals and snacks. And I think the other thing we need to remember is little ones have small tummies, so they do need the opportunity to eat more often than us, but we still need them to have that break to enable them to get hungry, because otherwise they're just going to top up all day long, and they're never going to develop a real hunger. And this can be really frustrating for parents.
Sure can. It's like a slippery slope. I know that for me, during COVID especially, and on the weekends, my kids are constantly, it's a battle. They're at the fridge constantly. And you said something about the milk. It's always pouring themselves a glass of milk. And I think, you know, how are you going to eat? So
That's right.
yeah, they
That's
definitely
right.
seem quite full by the end of the day.
That's right. And look, milk has its place, but then we need to make sure that they're not displacing, you know, other nutrients by having too much of, you know, one particular food.
Yeah. And when you say with the 2 hours between the meal times, I know that obviously with preschool and school, you have structured meal times. And we should be replicating this. Should we prepare little lunchboxes for them? Or how do you stop the little ones from going to the fridge and helping themselves all the time?
Well, I think you do. You set boundaries around that. And certainly if you're out and about, then you can take that bento style lunchbox. And I think that works really well. And I do have to say here, for the sort of 2 to 4 year old age group, when they're not at school yet and you are out and about, sometimes, especially if they're still sleeping at around lunchtime, sometimes the morning tea and the lunch do merge into sort of one you know, brunch, and that's okay for that age group, and that's where that bento style lunchbox does work really well. But yeah, trying to as much as possible stick to sort of like a 7:30 breakfast, a 9:30 morning tea, a 11:30 lunch, you know, an afternoon tea, and then dinner, and then perhaps supper. Depends on what happens in your family. But that sort of 2 hours can be helpful. And look, you know, let's be honest, in real life, it's not always going to be like that. Sometimes, you know, that time frame does get shorter, and certainly that happens to me as well. And I know that some dinners my son doesn't eat as well because he has had too much for afternoon tea, and that's real life, right? So it's about trying to get to set this, I guess, this scenario up, which is going to mean that children are more likely to eat better, but real life means that it's not always going to happen.
No, we know that with everything.
Totally.
Little people do have minds of their own.
Absolutely, for sure.
And on the topic of, I guess, creating that structure, another really great thing that came through was about getting little ones to try new things. Now, this for me is a big thing in my house at the moment, and I don't know if food fatigue is a thing, but I feel like my kids have just, you know, I'm not always home at dinner time, so they have been having their chicken and veg and their this and that, and we have someone else helping us sometimes at nights and creating some really nice little, you know, flavored rices and things, and the kids just outright refuse. So are there any little hacks that we can offer for getting those little ones to try new things?
Great question. Look, I think we need to remember that this is a journey. And I always talk to parents about this being a journey. There is no quick fix to fussy eating and trying to get children to eat new foods straight away. We have to remember that we've been on this earth a lot longer than they have. So we know and trust and often like a food, but we need to remember that they haven't had this same experience with food, and they need to have a relationship and develop a relationship and a like and a trust for food. And the research tells us that this can take 10 or 15 exposures. And so when a child is presented to, like with the food at a dinner table, and we're like, you know, it's good food, it's healthy for you, just eat it. They're like, well, I've only seen it twice, or I've only seen it 5 times. And the research also tells us that we often give up after they've refused it twice. And I know certainly as a mum of 2, I've been guilty of this.
Yes.
But then the research also tells us that they need to experience that food 10 or 15 times. And that experience can be in the supermarket, that experience can be chopping up fresh herbs into salads and whatnot, even if they're not at the point where they're going to eat that fresh herb or that salad yet. But they just need these touch points, these experiences with food, and that helps them develop their, I guess, relationship with that food, and then that acceptance of that food over time. And we need to realize that when we role model healthy eating behaviors with our children, so when we eat a healthy food with them, when we get them involved in preparing food, we can be disheartened that they're not at that point of acceptance yet. But I want them to feel assured that they're moving their child closer to accepting that food, even if they're not taking it right now. So it can be disheartening to keep trying, and it can be so.
We've lost you there for a minute, Karina. We'll wait for you to pop back. Hopefully we can get you back in a minute. We got you. We're back.
Sorry, my phone went to sleep there. Must have got sick of listening to me.
We weren't sick of it. We weren't sick.
Every time we have that exposure, that child has another, I guess, touch point with that food, we are moving them closer to eventually accepting that food. So that's how we get children to try new foods, is create a happy experience with them in a non-pressurized environment. Soon as we put the pressure on, boom, up go the walls. They're never going to want to expand their repertoire with that food. We need to make it a happy experience, whether it's in the garden, in the supermarket, in the kitchen, or at the table seeing you eat it, or as a test food on their plate. But it needs to be a calm environment, because no one can operate and I guess work on improving something to do with them if they're anxious. You know, they need to be in a calm, relaxed state to then be able to start to try new foods. And often I say to parents say to me that when their child does want to try new food, they almost want to do it in private. They don't want people looking at them. Yeah. And often the parents of fussy eaters are like this, you know, staring at the table saying, eat your broccoli, or you've got to eat that to get dessert. And that's the opposite to what children want. They almost want to try, you know, eating it in a private environment. And we're not going to put up a sheet so they can do it on their own. But that's, I guess, a bit of feedback that we wanted to make it a calm environment and just lots of exposures in a non-pressurized sort of environment.
Yeah, and it's so true. Actually, one of the comments that came through, and it wasn't a question, but I actually did note it down because I thought it was really interesting, was about I had posted some stories of my little ones eating, and I have got a 2-year-old that's discovered that, you know, you can flick broccoli off the plate and go yuck, and it's very dramatic and it's actually quite comical. But I just, you know, sit there and encourage her brother and sister to eat, and it's quite interesting because I did let the situation unfold naturally, and that's because I've learnt the first 2 times around, if you go into these things as it being a battlefield and you're stressed and you're anxious, then they're going to feed off that, and they're just going to do it even more. So
that is exactly right.
Yeah, and do you find, because I found with my kids, when I'm there on the weekend, we're having family meals, it's so fun, we're laughing, you know, we've got share plates in the middle, they're feeling like they've got a bit of control because they're picking what goes on their plate. Whereas when I'm trying to rush them through the week, I'm trying to fill up their plates, make sure that they've emptied every little tray in that bento plate, and you definitely see a huge difference. You do.
And Emmy, family meal times are as important for the social and emotional connection with the family. It's a time when family sort of does life checks in on each other together, and the literature and the data are about the social and emotional development of children that do have family meal times together compared to those that don't is really, really interesting in terms of their mental health, their involvement with drugs and all sorts of things. Is better when they have family meals together, because I guess, you know, you do check in on life together, and if you keep this consistent as you're growing up, I've even noticed it in my my family, and certainly during this time we've all been able to have more quality time together, especially with, you know, my husband being home as well. We all have family dinners together, and the kids really love it. And it should be a time when you are sharing conversation and laughing and joking, rather than the pressure being on what they eat. And I think the share plate is a great idea in the middle of the table. Certainly there's a philosophy called the division of responsibility of feeding, which talks to it's our role as parents to choose when and what foods we offer, and then it's their role to choose which of those healthy foods that are on offer and how much. And they certainly do talk about putting it all in the middle of the table, and then empowering the child to make those decisions and choices for themselves.
It does. I notice actually the fussy eating, as we call it, it really does. I mean, for me personally, around that 18-month mark where they are testing their autonomy and realizing they can refuse to get dressed and they're going to get a reaction, or they don't need to get in the bath, or whatever it might be. It really is a bit of a control thing for them. It's like, I have this choice.
That's right. Yeah, look, fussy eating is incredibly common. It's 1 in 3, if not 1 in 2. And parents can feel really, really stressed because, to start with, in the first 12 months, yes, their child is eating everything that they want, the parent would like them to eat. But then, yes, once they do start to realize that they can have that autonomy and they can have a say in what they want to eat, then that can really change things. And yes, that peak time for children to become fussy is that 2 to 3 year old age bracket, and parents rang me in tears, which is why actually I have recently created a program for parents. It's a 6-week journey to get them from a place of chaos to a place of calm and happiness and confidence. So it's designed to, I guess, empower mums and help give them the confidence and tools. So, you know, label reading and getting rid of the white diet and gut health. And so anyway, if they want to find out more information, if anyone wants to find out more information, you can head to my website, which is www.smartbite.com.au/fussy eater. And I'll be opening up a new group for this program shortly. But yeah, that's why I've created it, because there's just so much stress around there, and parents really feel judged. And, you know, also when you go out, whether it's with mothers groups or you go out for dinner, and you know that your child's just going to eat that bowl of white pasta or hot chips, and you feel a lot of pressure and mum guilt around fussy eating. And so I'm really trying to reduce all of that and normalize it, because fussy eating is a normal part of children's development. We just need to have the confidence and the tools and the motivation and the resilience to like power on through it, because this is years in the making. This is not something that you can magically wave a magic wand and it doesn't be fussy. I mean, my daughter's 8 and she's pretty much there now, but it's a journey. Like, she was super fussy when she was around 2, and also children can be at risk of low iron, and that can knock off their appetite. And so, you know, it's not only just fussy eating. Sometimes you have other things that you're trying to deal with as well. And as a mum, you're trying to hold it all together, you know, we're the glue that, you know, keeps everything together, right? So fussy eating can just, you know, tip you over the edge sometimes. And
it can do, and I think it can. And I think you need to pick your battles sometimes. I know that on the days that my little ones are in preschool or kindergarten, wherever they might be, I know that they've eaten, because their lunchboxes come home empty, which is fabulous. I know that they've eaten substantially throughout the day. But it's the night time we struggle with, because they're tired, they're getting home late. And I just feel like we've just got to cut ourselves some slack, because it really isn't the end of the world if they're not going to eat everything that's on that plate, and you just need to pick your battles for your own sanity.
That is 100% correct, because little ones do have little tummies, and as adults we tend to place more of an emphasis on those 3 main meals, whereas a 3 to 4 year old will have 5 or 6 smaller meals, and up to 50% of their nutrition can come from snacks. So that's up to 50%. So I say to parents, and I talk about in my program, make sure the snacks are, you know, good quality snacks, not just, you know, rice crackers and puffed potato this and white that, because the snacks can provide a lot of nutrition and it takes the pressure off dinner. So we want to make sure that we're getting in good quality protein and plant foods and fibers and nuts and seeds, obviously not in childcare, but throughout the rest of the day, because it certainly takes the pressure off dinner if you know that they're going to eat those good quality foods at other parts of the day. And if they've had a big lunch or 2 or 3 serves at childcare, don't expect them to eat a large dinner, because they may fill up at 4 of those meals and not eat much at 2. And that's okay, but it stresses us out because we place the emphasis on dinner for, you know, meat, protein and veggies. But we just need to get better at putting it in earlier in other parts of the day. And some children will eat better in the first half of the day. And some children will eat, you know, well, and often that is the case because they get tired. And sometimes by the time we can get dinner out, it's a bit too late for them. So, yeah, we just need to, I guess, remember that they are different to us. And we need to, I guess, be mindful of snacks as providing a lot more nutrition than we might consider them for us.
Yeah, definitely. I know I've learnt the hard way. I'm always baking on a Sunday. We're getting the veggie muffins and hiding veggies in, you know, nice little sweet treats as well. And in
good on you. Good on you.
Yeah. Well, it's taken a while to get there. Don't you worry, Karina.
It takes time, though.
Yeah, and to organise a house with little people, I know how tough it can get. I was only thinking about it the other day. I thought, gosh, I would never have found the time to do this before 3 kids. How on earth am I making this happen with 3 kids? But it just took me a while to get there.
Yeah,
you do it. You get there.
You do.
Now, I just wanted to check back in on these questions because I know we were just chatting a little bit about veggies and snacks rather, and making sure that we're making those nutritious. And I know there's some really great ways that you can incorporate veggies and fruit. But I know that a lot of little ones go through this whole fruit versus vegetable stage. And there are often a lot of sort of things that are amped up with fruit. I mean, how do we find that balance?
Yeah, look, I think it's about just constantly showing up with a variety of those options for them. And I do say to parents, put plant foods on the plate at every meal and snack. So it might be that fruit has an appearance at breakfast time, and morning tea or crunch and sip, depending on how old they are, it makes an appearance, you know, mid-morning. And if it's fruit mid-morning with like a home-baked black bean brownie or something, then lunch is, or not to pressure mums, it could be like a Grady cracker. And the lunch could be, because we can't always bake, but lunch could be when you put the chopped veggies, because often, and my kids included, they prefer more like a deconstructed sandwich. So they have more of a plain sandwich. It's not the gourmet, you know, chicken, lettuce, mayonnaise, avocado sandwich, although I used to be able to get like a turkey and avocado sandwich into my, and cucumber into my daughter, but now no. But now she'll eat it on the side. So I always say, when you are giving them lunch, whether it's in the bento style lunchbox, whether it's off to school or whether it's at home, always put some colour, some plant foods next to their sandwich so that they get used to it. They get used to that colour being there. Same with afternoon tea. Whatever you're serving up, always make sure there's some colour and some plant foods. Same at dinner. So it's okay to hide foods, veggies included, but it's also really important that it goes on in the whole form so that they're seeing it in the whole form. So you can hide broccoli and things, but they also need to see a bit of broccoli. And then you need to be eating broccoli with them. So there's that role modeling as well, because that's really important. So I think it's repeated exposure is absolute key here. It enables them to familiarize themselves with that food. It enables them to understand that color is a part of healthy eating and a part of life. And eventually they will get there, but it might not be in the short term.
No, and I think I love what you say about the colour, because that's a conversation. I pick up all of these wonderful tips from you, obviously. But the colour on the plate, having that conversation with them, and you know, if they, I know that my 5-year-old at the moment has a very strong opinion of what she wants now for lunch at school, and I think it's highly influenced by those around her. She sees other little kids with different foods, so we always have the conversation around how do we make this a bit more colourful? What else can we put in here today? And I feel like they really get it when you start using that language consistently.
They do, and it takes sort of the pressure off it if you talk about colour, because let's be honest, kids love fun. That's what their life's about, and their life is very colourful, and you know, they're always painting in colours and whatnot. So if we talk about colours, and I know there's, you know, a lot of discussion around eating colours of the rainbow and whatnot, but yeah, that's a good way to do it. And I think also with plant foods, keep it mix it up. So think outside the square and use different things. So you might one day when you're at the supermarket try grabbing a bunch of peas and getting them to peel peas, or try, you know, tin corn or beetroot, or, you know, mix it up, because that's what they like. They like a variety of things, and then they'll land on something for a while, and then they'll come off and then they'll go on to something else. So yeah, it's you just got to keep trying. And on my website, actually, in the free information section, I do have lunchbox ideas with all those plant ideas just to try. And look, it's not just for lunchboxes, it's for home as well. In the bento style lunchbox, it might be olives one day, and then that week then that goes out the window, and then you try something else. So it's really about just mixing it up, but don't just give up. Just try things again a bit later on. And you just got to, as a mum, have that resilience and that energy just to keep trying and keep mixing it up, even if it's not something that you might necessarily choose.
And to not be disheartened when the foods come back and they haven't even touched it.
I know. I had a happy dance last week, Emmy, when both the lunchboxes came back empty. I was like, this hardly ever happens. And often I'll try and give the veggies to my son when he hasn't eaten at lunch. I'll say, here you go, buddy, let's eat it before we get to dinner time. But they both came back empty. I was like, woohoo! So,
winning.
It doesn't always happen. Rarely happens.
we celebrate those wins too, yeah. And it's interesting what you say about 1 minute they like this and they don't. It really does sort of, it goes like this. I've noticed certainly over the last few years they really do change quite frequently with their preferences. And I love the going the shopping or involving them in the preparation of the food, because they just seem to get very excited about knowing what's going on that plate.
They do. And look, you know, even this morning, for example, my daughter's been getting into scrambled eggs, and then this morning my son wanted to, you know, copy her. He's 6, and so he's able to do scrambled eggs. But this morning I wanted to let him scramble the eggs, but then, you know, the spoon slides and eggs go over, and it's that you got to let them participate, even though sometimes you don't want the mess. They do need that participation, and, you know, mixing pancakes and mixes, even though it can get messy, it is important to try to let them, you know, be involved, because it does empower them, and eventually, you know, you get more buy-in that way with them eventually eating it.
Definitely. It's all those child behaviour techniques we talk about quite frequently. It's very much, the same with food.
Yeah,
and
it is.
I wanted to ask you, actually, you mentioned about the options and, you know, suggestions you have for those meals and those lunch boxes. Is it that we should be mixing it up every day? Should we be trying to do variations? Is this where food fatigue comes on? If we're giving a sandwich every single day and we're giving the same veggies, I mean, how would you structure that, you know, throughout the week?
Look, I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if it's, you know, weeks on end that they do like a particular filling in their lunchbox, and it's, you know, the grainy bread sandwich with this, you know, carrot, this cucumber, this, and like, and you keep it pretty consistent and don't stray too far away from that, that's fine. Often parents get more worried about the variety than the children are. If they know and trust it and like it, they're happy with it. As long as it's balanced and it's healthy, then that's fine. However, yes, that you do get food fatigue, and you sometimes find that when, you know, we find this delicious, healthy, home-baked thing that is good for them and they love, and then we just hammer it, and then they're like, no, done with that. We've all done that. So that's when you can get food fatigue, and that's where you would just say, all right, let's just put that one to the side for a few months, and let's bring that one back into the rotation later. There's a fine line with some of those things, but if the lunchbox is pretty consistently sort of the sandwich, the veggies, or this, that, as long as it's healthy and they're liking it, that's fine. Children tend to have their preferred veggies. Usually, often it's raw for the lunchbox if they're at that point of eating veggies in the lunchbox. Hopefully they are. Cherry tomatoes always cut in half, and same with grapes. But certainly, I think it's that fine line between them getting bored of it. I mean, they'll tell you if they're bored. I wouldn't stress too much about the variety, but yes, I think mix it up when they're showing signs of wanting change, and they'll tell us anyway. They will tell us, yes. we've even resorted, the 5-year-old who's been quite resistant at the moment. We've resorted to writing menus the night before for what's going in the lunchbox the next day, because I was just like, I cannot have you getting late notes for school. We need to get this this is a slick operation. You're negotiating, Oh, my daughter would quite like that. It's like a cafe style sort of menu. Love it. Oh, that's a great idea. It's a good idea.
I feel like we could create a little chart that could be quite fun.
A little lunchbox menu. Love it.
Yes. Well, I won't lie. I even drew the bento style to make sure we knew what was going in each hole. We have to be quite specific sometimes.
I love it. No, that's great. And that's why that does lend itself to a really good sort of deconstructed lunchbox, because you can have the veggies and you can have the protein and those, you know, different compartments. So I think that's great. Good on you.
Good. Well, it might last for a week or two. And then
that's exactly right. And then on to the next thing.
You get a message from me going, Karina, what's next?
What's next? Actually, I will say a fun little game you can play with children that you're trying to, I guess, expand their variety or expand their horizons is there's a blindfold game. So you basically have, if they're up for it, they don't have to, they might not be the personality, but you basically sit them at the table blindfolded, and, you know, you could get another parent involved in this too, so that they're both blindfolded, and you sit at the table and you put a plate in front of them with about 6 or 8 different little pieces of food, some that they know and trust and like, and I would certainly start with those, so you're not scaring them and you're getting buy-in. But then some that they haven't tried before, or that they're still sort of learning to accept, and they're sort of sitting on the fence about, and they have to guess what that food is. And that can be a really fun little game to play with children if they're into it. And then if they like it, you can play it again. If it doesn't go down well, then just park that one. But it's just an idea.
And it's nice to make meal times fun and entertaining. And I even know with my 2-year-old, actually, I was noticing the other day, she was hoiking the broccoli off again and, you know, very dramatic. And then it wasn't until her brother and sister actually sat down and she could see them, and I poked the 5-year-old and say, you know, you need to be the leader here. You need to show her how to eat. And then they really do start to copy each other. And I think, you know, like you say with the parents as well, for you to be demonstrating that, because, I've seen what happens when the husband tries to sneak to the fridge to get the chocolate. They will run there and they'll want the chocolate. So
right. That's right. It's that role modeling, right? So and when she does flick the broccoli, try not to make too much of a fuss about it, because then she'll want that. No, I'm not saying she wants the attention, but sometimes children act up because they do want that attention. So not buying into all of that, and actually, you know, I guess dividing your attention equally across everyone in the family, so that the child that's throwing broccoli around doesn't necessarily get all the attention. However, we do need to make sure that they're not making a huge mess for you to clean up.
Yeah. And reinforcing it's reinforcing the good behaviours, would you say, rather than
because paying too much attention to fussy eaters, they feed off that, and they know that they can get that attention. So sometimes children will do that. Not saying she's doing that, but sometimes that happens. So
and that's happening as early as that 2-year mark you were saying.
I think because that can be, fussy eaters are often really smart, switched on children, and often very stubborn. But super switched on and super smart, and they know that food is one of the few ways that they can have control, and so they certainly use that to their advantage.
Oh yeah.
There's a power struggle. We got to cut the power struggle. Just, need a bit of reverse psychology with that one. Yes,
and to flip your own mindset, as we were saying before about the whole battlefield. If you go in there thinking this is really special time for us to connect and, you know, check in on the day, it makes it a whole different experience.
That's right. You've just really got to change that expectation, because sometimes our expectation is way higher than where the child's actually still at for that particular food. And so sometimes we need to lower our expectation and meet them where they're at and help them, I guess, move along their journey with that particular food. So that's why I do say, on the plate, always have test food, safe foods that they know and trust and like and can fill up on, but always have test foods that you want them to start eating, that you're also eating on that plate, so that you have a mixture of protein and carbohydrate and veggies, but some will be in smaller amounts if they're still learning to eat that food. And that's where a teaspoon of the test food's good, because you're not overwhelming them with too much of that food.
Yes, actually, that's a good point. I was going to ask that about the amount of food on the plate, because I know that when someone else has served my kids food and it's a mountain, they just don't even touch it. So is it that it can be overwhelming, right, if there's too much on the plate?
That's right. That's right, because they're little. And so I've got this nice little picture where there's this little person, this giant plate of food, and sometimes it can be very overwhelming. And look, children can ask for seconds, and we can give them more if they want more, or certainly if it's in the centre of the table, then they can serve up more. But I would start smaller rather than bigger, so that they can have a go, and then if they want more, then they can have more. But it can be overwhelming if it's too big.
Well, for us as well. I had another question come through, which I thought was quite interesting, because I know that my kids have certainly gone through the veggie stage, and I think sometimes proteins are a little bit hard, but in particular I've noticed with like fish and meat, I mean, how do we know that they're getting enough? How much should we be offering in terms of these, and what types are best?
Look, it's a challenge that I've experienced with my daughter as well, and is very common, and we do see low iron in the toddler age group because of that higher requirement for their age, and poorer intake sometimes of those iron-rich foods. So roughly the amount that they need in terms of protein or meat is the equivalent to the size of the palm of their hand. That's a really good guide. So just in terms of you're serving up a piece of chicken or meat at dinner time, have a look at the size of the palm of their hand, and then go for a similar size. I mean, look, there are specific dietary sort of guidelines. There's a national resource called Eat for Health, which is a feeding infants and children sort of guideline in terms of the amounts. I mean, I do cover this in my program, but at the same time, in terms of meat, roughly the size of the palm of their hand. But look, if they're not doing well with meat, then I think what we need to do is really focus on getting in those other sources of iron-containing foods in snacks as well. So that's where things like nuts and seeds and legumes, black bean brownies and, nut butters, and trying to incorporate baked beans or other legumes into foods, throwing in cashews into a stir fry and trying to sneak some lentils into a bolognese sauce, or with things like nuts and seeds and the black bean brownie, where you are using those sort of non-meat sources of iron and zinc, putting it with vitamin C rich foods significantly increases the absorption of the iron and the zinc in those plant-based foods that contain protein. Right. So putting, say, peanut butter on toast with some strawberries, or putting some baked beans on toast with some rock melon or kiwi or some vitamin C rich fruits. Other vitamin C rich vegetables include capsicum, red capsicum, broccoli, and tomatoes. So trying to pair up those non-meat sources of protein and trying to increase those non-meat sources of protein in snacks and pairing them up with vitamin C rich foods is a really great way to not only increase protein, but increase those nutrients such as iron and zinc, which especially iron is at risk in that younger age group. And certainly even using lightly coated, so getting a little bit of chocolate at home, melting it, and then tipping a whole lot of almonds and cashews. Obviously, they're, toddlers and above that are not choking risk of nuts. But we want to, maybe even just mix it into a bit of chocolate. So very lightly coated chocolate, but, lots of nuts and seeds and a really healthy snack. So then, you basically mix it all in and you let it dry out, and then you grab some of them and chuck them into the bento box if you're going out somewhere where you can take nuts, or certainly using it at home, and incorporating, as I said, like legumes, black bean brownies and whatnot into baked goods, and also into, curries and stir fries. I mean, kids often like that sort of deconstructed style dinner, which makes it harder to hide legumes and things, but I certainly do like a honey soy chicken dish where I'll put cashews in that. And so trying to just put nuts or crushed nuts into things, or I know of people that use I do too, almond meal or linseed sunflower and almond meal into bliss balls and baked goods and things like that. So just trying to sneak these things in throughout the day, because they will all add up. Flax seeds are really high in omegas, and trying to get more of those into their day, I think will really make a difference if it happens regularly.
And I love that you mentioned the bliss balls, because they're such a wonderful way to get the veggies in. And smoothies, are they,
smoothies are great too. Yep.
Chia seeds.
Put nut butters into smoothies, and chia and flaxseed. So absolutely. And the sky's the limit with smoothies. People put in spinach and avocado and oats, and oats are another really nutritious food. So I think it's about trying to incorporate more of these foods throughout the day, rather than just relying on the meat at dinner. And look, if you can get protein in at lunchtime, whether it's a boiled egg or dippy egg or tuna, then great. It's about just trying to, I think, spread it out so it's more across those 5 or 6 meals. And look, at the end of the day, I talk about a nutritionally balanced week rather than a nutritionally balanced day, because it takes the pressure off us as parents too, because, children aren't robots, and I don't probably eat everything I need in one day. Most of us would probably struggle. I mean, obviously I do try to eat healthy, but it's more of a nutritionally balanced week, especially, that I think we should be aiming for our children, just to, I guess, take the pressure off making sure that they tick all the boxes, every single day.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I'm going to definitely focus on my week long. Not 3. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
And I like that you say to think a bit differently, because I certainly do think, oh my gosh, they're not eating their fish, or they're not eating their meat and all the rest. But at the end of the day, what kids are really going to sit down and eat that, unless it's, exciting and interesting and a little bit different. So, stir fries too. So like you were saying with stir fries, if they are having those bento style plates where they are separated, should we just be slowly introducing these mixed kind of foods so they don't become too fussy?
Look, they've actually researched this, and they show up to the age of about 9, children do prefer a deconstructed plate still. And my daughter's 8, and she's now just starting to turn the corner. So my son's 6, and he still definitely likes his stir fry separate. So it's the noodles, the chicken and cashews, and the broccoli and red capsicum. That's pretty much what we do. And then, but my daughter has now started saying, "Mummy, can you mix it for me in the pan?" Because we eat it mixed. So yeah, like it's really interesting. I think don't pressure them for it to be mixed; they'll get there. And the same thing with fried rice. My son's just starting to turn the corner with that. My daughter has turned the corner, but for a long time they preferred, deconstructed, which is hard with fried rice. But look, I think it's something. It's part of their development, and we just need to know and understand that is normal. And they will get there. They're probably not going to be eating it deconstructed when they're 21. There are the few. I've seen some serious fussy eaters, and the father has actually confessed that, they gag with all vegetables, and, so there are the odd outliers, but most of the time they will get there. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Actually, the thing that prompted me to ask you was that I picked Ishka up from my daughter up from after school care the other day, and one of the teachers there mentioned that she doesn't like her food touching, and I thought, oh, maybe I'm setting myself up for failure.
No. She's one of the outliers.
Oh, there you go. Good, we're okay. We're doing
most of them will get there. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm just going through my questions. I actually think we have, in a really great amount of time, covered off some of those key things that did come through. And, there is obviously a lot of overlap when we talk about those sort of meal times and the food choices and all the rest. But thank you for sharing such practical tips, because I know that you and your fussy eating program are saving families all over the place.
Thank you, Emmy.
Yeah, we sometimes find it a little bit hard to think of these things for ourselves, and I know that you offer some really great resources, so thank you.
Thank you. No, that's my pleasure. As I said, if people want to head to my website at smartbite.com.au, they can find more info. But otherwise, I just wish mums all the best, because we've just got to support each other, and we're all in it together. Know that you're never alone if you've got a fussy eater. I've had one, there's plenty out there, and they usually get there. They usually do. So, no, it's been my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
No worries. And thanks, of course, to Biostime Nutrition, who, again, helped us pull together this wonderful series. And if anyone has any questions, of course, please send them through. I know Karina, the Biostime team, and myself are always available on DM, and we always love hearing from you. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
See
Karina.
you. Thanks, Emily. Bye. You too. See ya. Bye. See ya.